She said something about needing to get home. So let's see if she gets here. All right. So for the sake of the recording, we're starting the local community forest meeting for March 13th. As we have a 7-member crew and we have 4 of us here, plus our guest Jack Travelstead, that constitutes a quorum. So we'll get started. Let's see, Roger, you sent us minutes and agenda. Call to order. Has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda? Anybody have any amendments? Things I might want to make sure we talk about tonight? Oh, and minutes from the last meeting. I wouldn't mind going through them and maybe editing them down a little bit to just kind of extract the key points of the discussion rather than the ongoing narrative. I appreciate your note taking is so thorough, so don't take this as a criticism. But
if it's not helping review, then I'll just boil it down. Well, not just rather than spend the time here, we just boil it down and we'll take on pass over next time.
That works for me.
Yeah.
And again, I'm just one opinion, speaking as a member, not as a so.
You know, it's my style is unconventional. I'm more than happy to make it more conventional. It helps you guys out.
Honestly, the way it's great the way that you do it, and just for an official, official minutes. Nice.
I mostly do it for me, but if it, like I said, I can boil it down for you guys in terms of putting it in the file folder. I have no problem. That's okay. That's not really. It's not really any extra work to me.
Sweet, thank you. I appreciate it. Having read through them, there was nothing that jumped out at me as in terms of errors or omissions.
Do you want to proceed with approving this one, and then I'll just adjust my format for the following, or do you want me to boil this one down and then we'll approve it next meeting?
I'd like to boil this one down.
Good, we'll do.
Cool. Next item is public comment. So, seeing no members of the public, we can move on.
Must be doing all right then.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know, I think the public may be so distracted by the school budget that they just don't care about the town forest at this point.
I want to talk about
They voted it down, that's on the paper, right?
It was a resounding margin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot like.
But Roger's been getting an earful, I'm sure.
Yeah, you know, I welcome public comment, public participation. I appreciate it more, like maybe 4 months upstream, when we actually could have shaped it and heard the voices earlier. It's the frustration makes it harder to work with a you know, kind of that genuine spirit of wanting to make it come out better. We've all felt that in various areas, I'm sure. It's always at the finish line when everyone shows up with a problem.
Yeah. You know what? Let's get through our agenda here, and then you can cry on our shoulders. Trail building update from Sinuosity. I forget if I had this information last month or not. I had some correspondence with Brooke and Mariah. Brooke did confirm that trail work on the Bourne parcel is that they don't have budget for it. That their funds are going to be used up with the bridge building that they need to do in the planned trails on the Bedell parcels. So, you know, that crosses off one of the options we were hoping for in terms of water runoff remediation and stuff. No logging roads in the Bourne parcel, unfortunately. So that's what we got in trail building.
Okay. That is They say one parcel, do they mean that loop that was going to be, what I seem to remember, a machined, more easily accessible to like wheelchair type of trail? Is that little loop that was gonna be?
I think we're talking about the same thing. I don't remember specifically I don't remember if we had a commitment on the degree of finish on the trail, but there's a if there's a trail map in our shared folder. And it highlights the trails and that one is with the call outs, that one is tagged as trail number 1. It's marked in red and just in the way the call outs are. It was, thinking about the layout of it, the part that goes up the right of way and up to the knoll would be essentially remediation of the existing right of way and probably pretty easy. The other part that was kind of depicted conceptually as a loop around there, potentially pretty ambitious, especially if they were going to make it like wheelchair accessible. So, taking it as a conceptual plan rather than the final detailed plan, I think it probably breaks down into 2 different trail surfaces. But anyway, I think we're thinking about the same one.
Yeah, okay. And that separate from your idea of, because you've been talking about other trails potentially, but that's aside from sinuosity, that like the guy in Worcester.
Yeah,
we're talking about, we're not talking about those. That's
correct. Correct.
Talking about that potentially machine. Yeah. Wheelchair accessible.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I needed. So, okay, nothing on the warrant essentially at this point is.
Sinuosity does not believe they have capacity to do anything. Which is a bit of a shame. And well, there was all the discussion about remediation that, in Luke Hart's opinion, we need to do some remediation.
He was at last meeting. I wasn't here, so.
Yeah. It's further into the agenda. We can come to that. Okay, so that's 4B, maintenance activities, proposed plans completed. Specifically, this one is on here, Jack, I know that Dave Holton had sent you a letter. He showed it to me briefly at the end of the last meeting, and I kind of scanned it.
I have copies
Okay.
for everybody, I think.
Yeah. Let's pass those around then.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, is it,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he sent the letter to me and, in here, he mentions a number of activities that he'd like to do sometime near the end of May of this year. And he's sending them to me because he knows he needs NRL approval for activities. And I think most of the activities, maybe all of them, are okay. They're going to be okay. It's minor kind of things that are fully consistent with the conservation easement. The only thing that I don't want to use the word worry me a little bit was that this was coming from Dave rather than from the stewardship committee.
Mhm.
It would be, because I know I have to let VHCB know,
Mhm.
we have to have discussions with them. And I know the first thing they're going to ask is, who is Dave Holton, and how is he related to the stewardship committee, which I could easily explain. But I guess what I'm after would be the stewardship committee's approval of what Dave is asking to do. or some level of approval. And
Well,
doesn't necessarily have to be tonight.
sorry to interrupt, Jack, but my perspective is, we were kind of rushed in the last meeting, so Dave was here with this letter already.
Yeah.
So the right approach for this is we should talk about this in committee and as a committee, then essentially put our name at the bottom of the letter.
Make sure that's abundantly clear is that this is no dispersion whatsoever on Dave. Okay, he's a great guy. He's a wonderful member of the committee. I love him like a brother. And I don't want to do anything to upset him whatsoever. It's just, we're all new to this process, and it's a simple fix. Simple fix.
Yeah.
So that's all I need to say.
So let's just walk through this and get an idea of these things that Dave's proposing. And frankly, somebody has the initiative to come up and put this stuff together. I'm delighted to support it. Let's see.
I should dig up that great stumps and everything, get rid of the whole thing. It's gonna sprout. It sprout heavily.
I think,
Gotta get it.
I believe Lee said something about possibly pruning those apple trees during his walk.
Yeah, there was a suggestion.
Yeah, apple trees need a
Up
lot
at
of
the top of the
space.
screen, Roger. Okay, there you go. Who's joining us? Excellent.
Hold it.
Welcome, Maxfield. I probably don't have to yell because the microphone's right up there, but you just joined us in time for this discussion of a letter that Dave Holton had sent to Jack. And so we're looking at back through the full committee to review the suggestions that Dave had and basically figure out if we're in alignment on all of them, and if so, put our name at the bottom of the letter. So that Jack can move it forward with VHCB. So key points from this letter. He says there's the old field on the Bedell parcel, similar to where the soil remediation was done. And a few years back when Dave first looked at it, he figured that about 35% of it could be brush hogs. At this point, probably none of it, because the gray birch is grown in so much. And so he's proposing to do some things. Number one, cut back the gray birch to keep 35% of the field clear for brush hogging. Number two, trim, prune and release 5 or 6 apple trees on site. Remove one old and mostly dead honeysuckle. That's number 3. Number 4, rototill and seed a small area to flowers or plants for pollinators. Number 5, transplant yellow lilies and wild asters that currently grow at a spot near the East Elmore Road, north of Lee and Whitcomb's Bridge. This area would probably be cleared for a parking lot. So I think I know the spot that he's talking about. There was an old house site there, and not surprising that it would have some lilies and some other residual wildflowers. So that was number 5, transplant some flowers from East Elmore up into East Elmore Road. Number 6, plant some blackberries. And number 7, set up a game camera to observe human, bird, or animal visitors.
Where is this location? Is this the one right beside Route 15 out here? Or is this the one up and back we walked and did the tour that time?
One time we did a tour up there. You can,
And that was a single telephone pole or something?
Yep,
Oh, up
yeah,
there.
yeah, it's exactly, that's the spot. That's the area. I don't know if the telephone pole is still there after the soil remediation.
I don't think it
They
is.
took the pole out, okay.
Who took that out?
Stone Environmental supervised it, because it was, the soil testing revealed.
No, that's the one down by the road, right?
No, it's up, there's a road that goes up to it,
I know.
but you gotta go up onto the hill, so it's roughly the same elevation as the school, maybe a little higher.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Mansfield, if you want to look at the letter, I dropped it into the file, the meeting file. Go ahead.
So, what's our pleasure? Should we take this one by, one?
Yeah, it'd be good, but unless you lock those things really close, that stuff's gonna sprout heavy. Very rich. When you cut it off, it really sprouts. So you really have to get on it with the bush hog. We used to recommend every 3 years you do it.
Is it, yeah, how big around are these by, on average, do we
I don't
know?
know what the ground is, probably pretty good. If it was old fields, it's probably good ground.
Yeah.
Maybe clear the stones, who knows until you get in there.
Yeah. Like, I mean, are they like?
Yeah, they'd be small. I mean, it's, fresh, if it went from mowable, brush hoggable, within the last 2 or 3 years to not brush hog, maybe there were other, saplings.
We should take a look, yeah, we should take a look at it in the spring. And recommend how to do it.
This is not.
You get equipment up there and do it. That would be the best way. Yeah, it's somebody with a
Brush gravel or something, pull them up by,
pull the roots and everything right up.
right?
That way you have a nice field.
Is the idea, I guess he's not here, but do we think the idea is just, turning it into like a meadow okay, so.
So are they talking that as a parking lot sometime?
No,
That's too far.
To reclaim it as like an open
That's-
spot.
In talking to Dave months back, he had mentioned a desire to sort of keep that as an open meadow.
Yeah.
Plant a pollinator garden type thing.
Yeah.
Just something different than having the forest.
Add some diversity.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we like diversity, right? So. Yeah, pollinator, that's good. Is it? Not specifically to attract humans necessarily, was the idea also to have like. A good spot for people to go, do you know if that was his intent, or?
More, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Curious.
Yeah.
it's not far from one of the bike trails, that Sinuosity is putting in,
Yeah.
or, accessible from several of them, so. I'm sure we'll see human visitors.
Yeah, so maybe rogue trails can find their way out to it, just from people maybe going to seek it out, and so if it's
Dispersed recreation.
dispersed. Okay.
That's a good word.
Right.
Yes. If that dispersed recreation, forms into some regular footpaths, that's probably okay. If it's road trails, then we have to remediate them.
Right, road trails is more of an intentional trail, right? Yeah, so that's more like. Right, path of least resistance from, if people find out that there's a nice open meadow.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, honestly, I think if it looks like there's a place that needs and merits a trail to it, then, I think our process is we discuss it in a meeting, agree that there should be a trail, we'll designate it as a trail, or propose it as a designated trail, loop it through the easement holders, and, just, assuming that it's, I'll speak possibly out of turn, but, assuming that it aligns with the objectives of the forest management plan and the, terms of the conservation easement, then, I expect all of that stuff can be pretty low key.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's for wildlife and we see if there's a game camera on there and we see it's getting used by a lot of wildlife, might be nice to kind of leave it off the radar. But yeah, having a game cam there, I guess would help if that decision, if it's like, well, it's not getting used by that much wildlife except pollinators, then no big deal if people start going there. It's not gonna disrupt that flow. So I guess, yeah, figure that out down the road.
I mean, as far as, points 1 through 3 seem pretty high numbers, So I don't know if there's really much discussion I have there. In terms of rototilling, see a small area for flowers and plants for pollinators. Seems reasonable, maybe a little bit more detail there before he fires up the rototiller. I'm sure, I don't want to micromanage anybody, but at the same time, just to,
So does small mean 10 by 10, or does it mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's
2 acres?
So maybe a map or even like a back of napkin map or something. It's just like this area right here. I think that's fine with me in terms of a general idea, but I do think it makes sense to have a specific idea of what kind of modification he wants to do before we just say yes. And the pollinators, of course, natural species that are native to this area. Would be nice. No problem. The lilies and wild asters. It's linked, I think, to the maybe those were the flowers he was talking about. I'm not sure. Like the blackberries.
Natural.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was gonna say, I mean, it seems like they'll come on their own.
Maybe there's your favorite
Once
variety.
you clear an area, they're gonna come in by themselves.
I love blackberries, but I also know that they're very specific. Once they're there, they're gonna come in. So, if that's gonna, it's like,
That's what the birds have been eating.
yeah, just like the wildflowers, just an idea of what area you have in mind and, just so we can all be at peace with it. If it's a great idea, it probably is. Just want to know where it's going. And then whose game camera? Are we buying a camera? And then if we are buying a camera,
We gotta watch out, let's see, get stolen.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. Like maybe we have it and leave it there for a certain amount of days where someone makes a commitment to check it. If he wants to put up his own camera, I mean, who are we to stop him necessarily? But I mean, it would be cool to put some cameras up. But if we're gonna make a purchase, we should, I guess just do the due diligence or have him with a specific camera that he wants to buy. See how much of a spend we want to make on it. That's my input on the points on 4 through 7. 1 through 3, I'm perfectly cool with.
I'm looking at this again. I see the paragraph before the enumerated list. He says, I propose a work week near the end of May to include town residents and other organizations. So I guess he's not proposing to just go do it all himself.
Okay.
That gives us time, gives us a couple of months anyway, to get the details.
That makes sense to me. I think, in an ideal situation, if the letter could come from you detailing, the agreement at some level from this committee, and a little bit more detail on some of these, like Rogers mentioned, I think that would be perfect. And then what we would probably do is NRLT would go up to the site and take photographs and things like that, just to see what it looks like now that because VHCB is going to say, where is it in the forest? We can provide them with maps and photos
Yeah.
and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And there's time, as you've noted, to do that.
Mhm. We might be able to get Bruce Wheeler to fly his drone over it and take some drone shots.
We could even do
He's got a
that.
drone.
NRLT, we have a drone person, advisor, so he could probably do that as well.
Okay.
And do we know as far as the plan that Emily Potter wrote, that this, we can do this without changing our maintenance plan? So that's something we need to look into, I guess, so.
We probably need to take a look at that just to see what it says, make sure it doesn't prohibit anything.
Off the top of my head, I can't think.
And I
It
can't.
doesn't seem,
Conflict with the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we could, I suppose we could just send her this list and just say, is this consistent with forest management plan?
That would be perfect.
Okay.
That would be perfect. I hate putting the group through all of these paces, it's because it's mostly innocuous things that he's talking about. But maybe it's a good first case to sort of get a procedure, that everybody agrees with and understands, because there'll be other letters,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
And we'll also get a feel for how long this takes.
Yeah. Well, I think part of Dave's motivation is just to have an opportunity for, people who want to do volunteer work.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
And well, I'd rather have people building trails on the Bourne property, and at the same time, this is, he's got time and energy to propose and put this even, just to get this started. I don't want to stand in his way.
Who's that?
Dave Holton, who he came up with this idea. And if it's a work day or a work week, maybe some of this, this looks like it might be ambitious for a volunteer work day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
It'd be good, you could like practice run, or I don't know, practice run for lack of a better term, just this is what happens when we want to do something like this.
yeah,
Maybe how many people are gonna show up? They're interested in this sort of thing.
Dave's still on the board?
Yeah.
He's actually have to be here.
yeah, he wasn't able to make it tonight.
Sure, yes.
Yeah, I bet he is. Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Short season.
You think it's gonna be a short season? That's what I was saying too.
Yeah.
A month behind anyway.
All right, so what do we need to act on for this? I think consensus is we're
We'll just look at it, get hold of Dave, put him down here.
Just and we have a healthy skeleton here, add a little bit of flesh to it. I think we'll be ready to rock and roll, quite honestly. If we give it the thumbs up at the next meeting. Plenty of time to pass it and NLRT before the end of May for NRLT.
Is it? I mean, Jack, how much time do you need to run through a process? You have
Something
to
like this, I think it'll go pretty quickly. Our board meets on the 27th of this month. I'm gonna show them the letter. I'm gonna summarize what you guys said here. They'll probably have some questions. Maybe I can follow up with
Okay.
you. I'll also send it off to VHCB just to give them a heads up that a more official letter is coming. And they may look at it and say, oh yeah, this, nothing. Yeah, no big deal.
So in terms of using this as a training exercise, it sounds to me like a minimum turnaround time for us to do something is a forest committee board meeting, an NRLT board meeting, a turn with VHCB,
Yeah.
so it's probably a month.
Yeah, I would think by the 1st of May, this could all be taken, you'd have an answer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then the email response from Emily
yeah.
in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. It's
What
the
else you got?
speed of government.
I'd like to mow the lawn, please.
All right, so that's our maintenance activities proposal. So,
Did anybody hang the signs yet?
oh, good question. Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Kate Garvey was had expressed some willingness to do it. Michelle from the select board, select board administrative assistant, let me know that they were here like 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
Um,
They tried to unload them on me and I'm like, I don't have any room in my shed for them. They need to be here. But we'll get to them. But,
okay.
but
I hope
yeah,
they're not taking up a lot of space. They
I
can't
don't
be
think so.
too bulky.
no, I think they just wanted us to, yeah, they wanted us to come if they were here. Beyond that, I'm not sure precisely where they're supposed to be hung, otherwise I would take it out. Because I'm not sure exactly, I'm not as familiar as the trail, those other trail entrances. I've only gone into the woods a couple areas. So somewhat familiar with it, of course you do. But if you need help, help. Just for the record.
Let's see. Let me send an email to Kate. And I'll just make this really quick.
I can't remember if we talked about they're going on trees or they're going on stakes in the ground, or does that maybe depend on the
I think
individual
it's
site?
dependent on the site. So. Okay,
You already did email her, but did she not respond to that one? I remember you did.
I told her that they were there. Actually, okay, that's a good idea. Maybe let me check my sent mail.
I think you sent it to all of us, including Kate, but maybe she responded. I don't know. Yeah, she didn't respond to the group that I remember.
So that was the. So, shoot. So, do I remember correctly that you offered to post the signs? If so, have you gotten to it? It's not. So I'll report back and whatever from there. So anything else? Maintenance activities. Proposed plans completed. I don't think we've got anything else. Okay, so then next item of business is an update from Northern Rivers regarding the adjoining property.
Okay. So I think maybe all of you, or at least some of you. Know Alton Smith. Tony Smith.
Yeah,
Tony passed away in August.
yeah.
But for more than a decade, Tony had been interested in conserving his property. That's the map that I just handed out is the border of Tony's property. It's over on Kachane Farm Road near the intersection with Elmore Pond Road. It's a 55.5 acre parcel. Through the years, he bought a number of properties, small and conglomerated them into what you see here. That on the right-hand side of the map, that short border is the Wolcott Community Forest.
Yeah.
So it joins the forest. We started meeting with Tony about a year and a half ago. He wanted to conserve his property. He had no close heirs. He does have some very distant second cousins that live all around the world. But as we were engaging him in discussions about conserving his property, his health took a turn for the worse. And before he passed away, he said, I'm not able to go through the process to get all this done to conserve it. So what I'd like to do is leave my property in my will to the Northern Rivers Land Trust. And he has done that. And he passed away at the end of August of last year. But he had, and I'm going to read you a couple of lines from his last will and testament. What I'm after, there are a number of options in speaking with Tony's executor. His executor, by the way, was a very close friend of Tony's. There were three guys that were best friends who hiked every mountain in New England in the winter in their younger days. And one of those gentlemen is now the executor of the estate. So he knows Tony quite well. It's not like it's a business relationship, it's a friend relationship. And he's trying to see that Tony's wishes are taken care of to the best that he can. But Tony's will says, I give and devise my entire real estate located at 97 Kachane Farm Road, 55.5 acres, more or less, with buildings and other improvements located thereon to the Northern Rivers Land Trust, to be conserved and preserved for future generations to enjoy. NRLT shall either hold the property in perpetuity or convey the property subject to a conservation easement. The easement may exclude a small portion of the property where my buildings are currently located. Then he goes on to talk about his wishes. It is my wish that NRLT give or sell the property to the town of Wolcott to be added to the Wolcott Community Forest, which is contiguous with my property. If NRLT should be unwilling or unable to receive the property, subject to the terms previously mentioned, then the property shall pass to the town of Wolcott to be added to the Wolcott Community Forest. If the town of Wolcott should be unable to receive the property, then I direct my executor to make reasonable efforts to seek other ways to conserve and preserve the property. If none of those work, then the executor can sell the property and distribute the proceeds to his other heirs that are listed in the will. So the will says we can sell it to the town or we can give it to the town. I had one conversation with Linda Martin about this, and she made it pretty clear, and I already thought this way, that there would be slim to no chance that the town would purchase the property. It's, you already have a 735 acre forest. Why would we go out and spend several $100,000 to buy a property? And so that option has sort of been dismissed pretty quickly.
Yes.
Well, then we talked about what if NRLT gave the property to the town. and Linda mentioned that, you know, there are residents in the town, they may not be a majority, that are concerned when properties are taken off of the tax rolls. And so when you conserve the property and give it to the town to be added to the community forest, that removes it from the tax rolls. And even then, there could be some folks who would not be in favor of that, even though it adds 55 acres to the forest.
Tax to everybody else.
Yeah. The taxes on the property currently are about $6,500 a year. One option that Linda and I talked was, well, and Tony mentions in his will, he says you can carve off 2 acres of my property where my house and buildings are. And they're down in this lower corner there.
Yeah, yeah.
See, and I know you know where that. And keep that on the tax rolls, that 2 acres, have NRLT sell that to a buyer, you know, who wants to be a homeowner. Let the other 53 acres be added to the community forest. So that keeps some property on the tax rolls. Now, having said that, we met with the executor of the estate a couple of weeks ago. And they sort of laid out, we talked about various options. Their first option, if they could achieve, would be to give the entire property to the town. And they hope that the buildings that are there could be used by the town in some association with the town forest. Like a nature center, could be converted into a nature center, a parking area to get into the town forest from the west side. That would be their ideal option. You know, make use of those buildings somehow related to the town forest so that the entire 55 acres could be used. When I raised with the executor, you know, the options of carving off the 2 acres, keeping it on the tax rolls, they understood that as, you know, as an additional option. We also mentioned, you know, I know this committee in the past has talked about possibly having Vermont HUD Association put up hut somewhere in the community forest. And the thought was, well, maybe they could rejuvenate Tony's house for that purpose. And you could have, you know, a HUD Association building there.
Yeah.
So that's another option.
There's 2 buildings there,
It's
There's
3
a whole
buildings.
log.
It's 3 buildings. It's a log home.
and then there's like a garage.
It has good bones. It needs some work on the inside. You know, there's no, for instance, there's no drywall on the ceiling. It's just bare beams with insulation, things like that. So it's a fixer upper, but it's got a good roof on it. It's got a good, you know, solid concrete basement under it. You know, well, heating, electrical. And then there's another building that looks like a garage, but it doesn't have a garage door on it.
Didn't he live there? And that's where he lived.
He lived in the
Upstairs?
log cabin. No,
He lived in the log.
yeah. The building that looks like a garage is, I would say, 20 by 20. It's only 7 years old. It's well built, concrete slab. And then there's a third building that's I have not been in. I think Tony lived in it for a short period. It's more of a rustic cabin. Maybe needs to be torn down. I don't know.
Yeah. That's the one overlooking the swamp over this way.
No, that's another one. There is in the north, sort of the northwest
That's real.
section, that wooded area. There's an old hunting camp there that is full of junk and probably will, when the property is conserved, it'll probably be torn down and removed.
Mhm.
And in fact, the executor has said they would be willing to pay to have that removed.
Mhm.
Gabe, is your old family land right there? That's the south piece, right?
Yeah,
Just south of it?
Yep.
Yeah. Is your dad still own that?
yeah,
Did you know Tony?
yeah, I mean, Tony kept to himself.
He talked to me about East Valley one time, but I never heard from him again.
My dad or
Yeah.
Tony? Oh, yeah,
That was a couple of years ago.
yeah.
Cause I got the property right. I got that.
That's
That's one
your,
of my,
that's a client of yours.
Yeah.
That's Dave Fulton's friend. What's his name?
Court.
Trevor Court.
Trevor Court.
Yeah.
Okay.
Court,
Yeah.
Court, yeah.
Trevor Court.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know
CORP.
that's right up into the born piece.
Yeah. So Gabe, you were saying Tony kept to himself.
Yeah, he was, yes, very much so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
But we would feed his cat when he would do his adventures once in a while, you know.
Uh-huh.
He'd get one of us to feed the cat. Usually my brother Cole would do that.
Neat.
So we had a little interaction with him. But yeah, he was kept to himself.
kind of a recluse.
Yep, I would say
I
that.
worked for the state for
Yeah.
many years.
Yeah.
Department of Labor or something like
Something, yeah.
that. Yeah.
Retired.
Rode his bicycle to work. He was very frugal,
Yeah.
very frugal.
Yeah.
Rode his bicycle to Montpelier.
I think he worked in Morrisville.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rode the bike. But anyway, those are the options that, you know, make use of the building somehow related to the community forest, Vermont Hut Association. The other one was Habitat for Humanity.
Mhm.
Maybe give the 2 acres in the buildings to Habitat for Humanity.
That's a rough land for that.
Do what?
Well,
That's
the
pretty
two,
rough
the
land.
2 acres, just the 2
Oh,
acres.
the 2 acres, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
The
just the
rest
2
of
acres.
it's.
The rest of
No, the
it's,
rest we go to
the rest of it's,
Probably undeveloped. A
Yeah,
lot of it's wet.
yeah, very much. There's a big beaver wetland meadow area you can see there on the map. The stream coming out of that runs sort of zigzags back and forth across that southern long boundary leading into the community forest. In fact, it's Whitcomb Brook is what it
Mhm.
forms.
Right.
yeah.
What else can I tell you?
This was the,
What, so Jack, number one, this is wonderful, wonderful news and absolutely glad to hear it. And, you know, from my perspective, I think, you know, we talk about it as a committee, but what a great opportunity. Absolutely. Let's take more forest, especially more road frontage, especially the possibility, what this opens up is a possibility of you know, through trail essentially that goes from that intersection on the Elmore Pond Road to come out at the trailhead down here or come out at the trailhead further up on East Elmore Road. And as well as additional access for, you know, any kind of management activities. It's a tremendous asset for our town forest, unquestionably.
There's one other piece of information that came to mind. NRLT can conserve this piece outright and then give it to the town. But an easier method to conserve it may be to simply amend the existing conservation easement on the community forest by amending this property into it, instead of going through the whole process of doing a separate conservation easement. That way you have both NRLT and VHCB oversight of the property, just the way you do the community forest. I see that as a good thing. I've had a preliminary discussion with VHCB about that option, and they have said, yes, that is a real possibility. that they would probably be willing to do a simple amendment. They did have some questions about the buildings and how all of that would be dealt with in the conservation easement. And that's when I raised with them, the HUD Association, Habitat for Humanity, whatever, various options. So we're keeping them in the loop. Obviously no final decisions have been made. They also said they would provide additional money to NRLT. VHCB said they would for stewardship of the additional acreage, which makes us happy. The only other thing they noted when VHCB looked at the map is the Corp family appears to have encroached over the boundary there. You can see where there's no trees. And in fact, we noticed that a couple of years ago and asked Tony about that. And he said, yes, I gave them permission to cut trees in that area and to maintain it as an open area so they can get a view of Mount Elmore from their house. And he willingly did that. And I mentioned that to VHDB and they said, yes, there's a way that we can license them to have that right to maintain that open space.
That driveway crosses the property?
I don't think.
Well, you can't tell from this map.
Yeah, I don't think it does. It comes close,
I think
but I don't think it does.
This map is not a survey grade map.
Right.
So there's a lot of questions there.
That blue line.
But you can see right here.
Yeah.
Right here. That's where Tony had said, yes, I let them cut trees. And
So
open that up in-
it's not subject to adverse possession.
Right.
So.
Right.
Okay.
So at some point I'll have to have a conversation.
That driveway and road is also a right of way for this piece up here.
Is it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Name of Garfield owned it.
That's good to know.
Which, and then also we have, there's a right of way up to the Bourne parcel along.
Maybe
this
that's
boundary
it.
here.
Maybe that's it.
So. No,
Maybe it-
well, on the map that I've seen, it's right along the boundary line. It's not this.
Oh,
Anyway, those are the options, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on those. Ultimately, I'll have to go to the select board and present this again. But I think they would like to hear from you guys as to, what you think is reasonable or out of the question or, whatever.
Well, as Burton said, it certainly has some benefits that really check off some boxes that we were already conceptualizing in terms of site access, having a through trail that wouldn't necessarily require additional right of ways and things along those lines. Additional parking is always welcome, especially when you can spread it out a little bit. So it's not just this big kind of eyesore parking lot. And just there's some more variety, and you have that beaver pond in there, which is always this beautiful chaos, which is fun to see in action, and it's also a good learning opportunity to bring kids through and kind of see who doesn't love watching cute little animals at work and play. But anyway, I guess the temperature in the water is that. You've listed a whole bunch of options. I just wanted to revisit it as is NRLT looking to sell it or to donate it, or it's still not really sure what makes sense at this point.
I can't see the town even wanting to negotiate.
Yeah.
Okay, that was like my follow up there.
That's a non-starter.
Yeah, I think that's, and if you all want to make that clear in the minutes that that's a non-starter, that's,
I don't think there's a lot of appetite, especially in this year for any.
It's a non-starter.
Yeah. So, NRLT will, be giving it to the town.
Sure.
The question is that 2 acres in the buildings.
Yeah.
That's sort of what's up in the air.
I'm personally favorably inclined to the idea that the 2 acres could be pulled out of, could be retained from the conservation easement, and sold as a home,
Home site.
yeah, essentially to.
Give something to the, what was Tony's, did he have family or?
No, he was never married. He had no children. All of his
Well, who's the,
heirs are like second and third cousins twice removed, and they live all over the world.
okay, so there's no direct.
No.
Not
There are people very specifically, though, listed in his will
Yes.
by name, saying you're getting this, you're getting that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what you should do, take 2 acres or more, you know, take some more if it's,
Yeah, none
and
of,
that would be,
Well, his instructions were clear that he wanted the most of it to go to the town.
yeah,
oh,
So-
yeah, I understand that, take out 2 acres or whatever would make a good house site and the sale of that would pay for, you know,
Would provide funding for NRLT, to
Something,
do
yeah.
something else with,
because if nobody in his
And-
family or anything ever wants them, they don't want anything out of it.
right.
and
None of the heirs have an interest in the property.
the majority of the value to the town for taxes would be in the homestead and the
Yeah.
2 acres.
Yeah.
If we do that,
You know, they-
very much addresses the hypothetical concerns.
Mhm.
So I'm favorably inclined to that idea. I'm also personally favorably inclined to considering if there's a way to incorporate it, if there is, if there's value in having buildings that are part of the town forest. At least for consideration, but I'm somewhat dubious about it because,
No.
buildings come with a maintenance,
That's right, you can't maintain it.
requirement. And
Not to have any buildings at all.
Just general
Yeah.
upkeep, heating and electricity.
Yeah.
and-
exactly,
Be a
So-
money pit.
yeah.
As long as we can keep a decent parking lot there, and that's all you need.
Yeah, there's plenty of road frontage there, as you can see, that
Yeah.
would offer plenty of places for parking. Yeah.
Yeah, something could be done there.
What are you looking for from us?
Just what you've been providing, what options appear to be reasonable and others that are not workable, like the sale, selling it to the town.
You want a consensus tonight?
That would be very helpful. Yes, so I could report back to my
I
board.
recommend that we accept it and then take the 2 acres out and sell that separately to whoever for a house site. Because you
Is that a
can always
motion?
use it on a house site. Yeah, you can always use it in this town.
So you're making a motion that as a committee, we recommend that course of action.
Yes.
I second that. One little note of when in the conceptualizing process of identifying what 2 acres might be carved out for the residents. To maybe identify an area of the retained, like under conservation, that we could develop into an access point, like a parking lot or
Oh,
something.
yeah,
I want to make sure that
yeah.
it's put in there, I think on the front edge.
Yeah,
We might be able to cite it in a spot where it can do as little damage as possible.
I'd like to take another look. I mean, I've driven by that thousands of times because I used to live just up the road from.
Okay.
And
But yes, that's a second.
never thought of it as a parking lot. Maybe we ought to go take a look at it, see if it's feasible for that.
I think we should,
Right at the end of, that's of the turn,
yeah,
Hushang Road comes in,
I
right
think,
in that area there.
I think we should have a trail access. The trail access should stay
Trail
should
access.
stay, excuse me, I'm speaking. The trail access should stay to the north and, basically to the north of the Beaver Ponds.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
definitely. There is some,
Yeah.
if you see that largest beaver pond,
Yeah,
if you go north from that beaver pond, that ground is very wet in there. And there are some old boardwalks I guess Tony had put in there to make access over. They obviously, they're gonna need to be replaced, I think, but that, your trail, you're right, to the north would make sense.
Yeah, is it possible to stay on solid ground without ingress into the neighbor's property?
I haven't
You'd
walked
have to
the
look
property
at
enough, but I think the answer is yes.
Okay.
I have walked over there and I have seen the boardwalk and the wet ground, but I don't think it goes all the way to the blue line.
Mhm.
So you could probably,
Don Putfing had cross-country ski trails in there when he had his little business down the road. And I don't know if they're probably all grown in like all the rest of the trails. He did have access across that property. It used to be the Burlone property from Philip from Montreal, used to come up, had that little A-frame up on the hill, right across from Don Putfing's. Remember there was a garage and then they had steps up to an
Yeah,
A-frame. up
Yep,
there.
yeah,
And he owned this whole thing.
really?
Did your dad buy that from him? Do you remember?
No, no, our land was somebody else.
Yeah, I think he was just south of the. Because I know that's when it was,
Yeah.
I wasn't here, but I heard about it, that Tony got some of that land and Corp
Trevor Corp.
didn't get it, but he got it, somebody else had it and he bought it. In fact, I looked at that when I first came back,
Yeah,
looking for a house.
I think that's a
A
little
lot of
A-frame.
money.
A-frame.
Yeah, that's a
Get there.
little, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know what the pieces around it, maybe there was just another subdivision.
So anyway, discussion, we're.
Can I read back what I wrote down as the motion as I understand it, so that we can edit it?
Mhm.
Make a formal recommendation to the town to consider accepting the donated property from NRLT with the intent to carve off 2 acres to maintain as a residential home site and to conserve the rest with some considerations to allow for site access, such as a parking lot and trailhead.
I think okay. I think our proposal is guidance for NRLT. But,
Oh,
it amounts to the same thing,
Yeah.
our proposed path forward would be NRLT to subdivide a home site. I'd like to suggest that we leave it flexible in terms of the size.
Okay.
I mean, not that this is going to be necessarily binding on NRLT anyway.
yeah.
He
But-
didn't
but-
say exactly 2 acres, right?
In his will, Tony says 2 acres.
Oh, okay.
Conservation easement may exclude a small portion of the property. Well, I thought he said 2 acres, maybe not.
Maybe,
May exclude a small portion of the property where my buildings are currently located. I don't know where the 2 acres came from. It may have been
Well, you gotta have that for the
in
town.
conversation with the
You're
executive.
gonna have that that's the minimum size for the town.
That's where it came from. We spoke
But you
to
can have
them.
more,
You gotta have 2 acres and you have to have 150 feet of road frontage, I believe.
200,
200.
it's 200.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll get on it.
So anyway,
I don't wanna
let's not impose, we'll put that as a limitation. And leave the flexibility for the judgment of NRLT and people who become better acquainted with it.
So that might make it more valuable, a little more acreage.
Yeah, and I gotta say that is a pretty sensitive little wildlife area, that swamp.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, as far as trails go, probably good to give that some birth, just, I mean, it's a special little spot there. I mean, as far as wildlife goes, and I think we should keep that in mind.
When I walked that area last summer, the beaver dam that creates that pond to the one that's furthest to the north and east
Yeah,
the beaver dam had broken
Mhm.
in the middle and there was no water there. It looked like it was in the process of becoming a beaver meadow.
right.
Now, if the beavers come back, they'll repair it.
That stuff grows up again. When they run out of food,
Yeah.
that's when they leave.
For some reason, they moved up to my right below my mom's house, and they are damming her
No,
every
the
year.
street?
She has to make her driveway higher.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're turning.
Your mom still live there?
Yeah, well, she built a little house. It's her property's in Elmore technically, because that's the line. So she's put off that triangle's her, and that they have moved south for whatever reason, even though
Well, to follow the trees, right?
it could be, maybe
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe they kind of used up,
Mhm.
downstream or upstream.
Anyway, it'll come and go as a beaver pond
Right.
over the decades, right?
Yeah.
Which one to go?
I revised it.
Have you got
Feel free,
that?
we can edit it again.
Okay,
Formal recommendation to NRLT. To donate the property to the town of Wolcott to add to the town forest. With the intent to carve off a portion to maintain as a residential home site and to conserve the rest. With some considerations to allow for site access.
Yeah.
Okay,
and I think, so options for conservation easement, either it's strictly with NRLT as a separate easement or joining with the, to be merged with the town forest. It sounds like that makes things easier for people, that have a, yeah. My one thought is, we might have more flexibility if there's one easement, one organization that owns the easement rather than two. And, we could have different terms on the easement, but I don't think that really makes any real difference.
Yeah.
The more I think it through, and if that makes it easier for everybody, then we should go that route.
NRLT has had one conversation. After we came up with the idea of just amending the easement to include this property, what you had to go through to create the community forest. There were surveys that had to be done, collapsed buildings that had to be removed, title searches, a lot of hoops had to be jumped through.
Mhm.
If you just went the NRLT route, you may not have to do some of those things. We're not quite as strict as VHCB would be. So we're still thinking about that process too.
Yeah, okay. Were those requirements imposed by VHCB or?
Well, it was sort of a combination of Kate's organization, TPL,
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, just speculation, but the way I understand it is Trust for Public Land is a national organization with some really deep pocket sponsors.
Right.
And they're in a situation where the potential liability they would be exposed to
Exactly.
if they transferred a piece of property to a municipal entity that had problems associated with it, and then the municipal entity or somebody either went after the municipal entity or the entity itself went after TPL, that would be ugly.
So we're going to continue to explore both options and talk in more detail with VHCB, and we'll see what comes out of that. But I'll be back here every month keeping you guys apprised. This is not something that's going to happen terribly quickly. The entire last will and testament. The last I heard from the executor is everything won't be solved until 2026, somewhere in that time.
Who's the executor?
A guy named George Putnam, who was a very close friend of Tony's. He lives in over Johnson Way, somewhere over that way, Underhill, I think. Real nice guy. But yeah, it's a lot of work.
so I amended the motion one more time. Formal recommendation to NRLT to donate the property to the town of Wolcott to add to the town forest with the intent to explore merging with the existing conservation easement to carve off a portion to maintain as a residential home site and to conserve the rest with some considerations to allow for site access. Can I call the question?
Totally can call the question.
Leave it alone.
Yeah. I mean,
We can always try to.
it's all good, you know, it's all good discussion, but yeah. So, the question has been called. All those in favor to call the question? Opposed?
I see a hand over there.
Okay, so we're voting on the motion. I won't ask you to read it again.
It's mouthful. But it feels so efficient.
Does anybody feel the need to read the motion again?
No.
Max, no. All right, let's move the clock.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you all.
All right, cool.
So from here, I'll summarize this for my board when they meet on the 27th. And I will give George Putnam, the executor, a call to let him know about these conversations and the one that I've had with VHCB, and just to keep him in the loop. And then I think the next meeting I'll have is with the select board at some point.
Okay.
In which case George may want to come along for that as well.
I'll CC you when I send the draft meeting notes as well, so that they can see that it's official.
That'd be great. Yeah, great. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, this is exciting. Seeing it grow already.
There was an old road out to that dilapidated rundown camp.
Oh, really?
Full of junk.
Okay.
That, yeah, there is an old driveway that goes to it that could maybe be reclaimed if
Okay.
that was gonna become.
Does it come out onto the road?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just a little bit of a sketchy corner there, like, because you got the blind corner and then it's like right there, so.
Okay.
But there is, yeah, at one point, and it's still, you can still faintly see it.
Okay.
It's somewhat established, so.
Okay.
I'm excited to go take a tour of the property.
Yeah, we can do that anytime you all want.
Cool. All right, then moving on in our agenda. 5B, continued discussion with forest management, logging, erosion controls, etc. No Emily, no Luke tonight.
You got me.
We got, but yeah, we do have one forester, one for three.
Someday I want to talk about that, when the time is.
Well, right now is the topic on the floor is forest management.
Okay. Well, I would like to recommend a logging operation on not the one piece. What's the other piece?
The Bedell.
Yeah, the L piece. What this would entail, I've got a fellow who has a grapple skidder and a shear, and he would build a parking lot. That would be the landing area somewhere, and he would build a parking lot and a road into the parking lot. Because he uses tractor trailers to truck his logs, so that would be a significant road. And once that is done, that whole parking landing area would be made into a parking lot. That's part of the contract. There'll be skid roads up there. The skid roads, you could use those as a lot of your trail systems. And we can make it part of the contract to fix those up as trails with water bars, and they're gonna do it anyway. And you can connect up trails and then run other trails off that. It would probably bring about, I'll say $45,000 to $50,000 worth of stumpage to the town with this operation. It would be a marked sale. And also, you're back down to the reason why do you own land? What's the reason you own land?
It's in our plan, as a matter of fact.
Right.
To provide access to nature, for conservation, for water quality conservation.
Yeah, and I could mark it. I don't know if I'll do it as a volunteer or whatever. I can work with nothing a little bit, but you know. And we got Luke could help, and Dave could help. This is something, if I'm talking like next winter, it'd be a winter operation. We wouldn't do it in the summer, it's kind of too wet. This winter would have been a nice winter to do it. So I don't know if we're gonna have any more of these. But when you figure, why do people own land? I want an example. Why do you own land? I know you have your house on it, but there's other reasons.
Absolutely. So personally,
Recreation, you know,
Uh,
well, whatever, personally.
I mean, yeah, you've got your answers in mind. Do you want to just say what you're thinking?
Okay, we got recreation. Okay, wildlife management. How do you do wildlife management? You'd have to go in and, well, what I'm trying to say is the last thing people own land for is for logging up for timber. Exception of Champion Paper Company or something. But all those other reasons, in order to create more wildlife areas, the best way to do it is through a logging operation. Unless you've got enough money to go hire somebody to go in there and just cut trees down and just leave them there or whatever, I don't know. Same with trails, the money to build trails. This could be done with, I've done it in Stowe. I got land on there, money is not a problem. We took all the skid roads that went up into his property and we connected them all. That was not part of the skid roads. We actually built the roads and we put bridges in. He paid for the bridges and everything. We have steel beam bridges put in. And so he's got a heck of a record. He's big on side-by-sides, you know, and also trail bikes and stuff, but his grandkids run around too. And that turned out real nice. He's got a nice logging operation down there. Also, some areas we could clear off, maybe an acre or maybe two for wildlife areas. And I've explained a lot of my walks. You've got to have vegetation about that high in some areas because of all the young birds. That's the only place they can eat is 6 inches down, all the bugs. So you need an open area. And that kind of breaks up the forest and
This is very similar to what Luke was saying last month's meeting.
Yeah,
He
we're
spoke.
all talking the same thing.
And and I think what we came around to, Mike, was these are all good ideas, but at the same time, we need more specifics than to just be like, let's just do it. You know, it's like we need to know specifically what areas
Right.
we're targeting. We need to know what kind of roads are being proposed. And we want to make sure that the work that's being done kind of enhances the outcome in terms of what are, you know, the development goals in terms of creating a recreational natural area that people can come in and enjoy as well.
Yeah.
So it's you know, I don't think anyone is, you know, 6 of this, half dozen of the other, you know, we all want a healthy forest, right? And we know that there's going to be some level of forest management, cutting and grooming at some point in order to maintain that.
Yep.
But I do think that it's you know, to start boiling that down into some specifics, especially if because he was saying that there's some grant money that could be available in terms of things like selling water bars and erosion controls and things like that have a timetable.
That's all part of the sale.
Exactly, and I think starting to boil that down and then working out some of the detailed specifics, like what areas are the priorities.
You have to look at it.
Yeah, and you know, and how that relates to the proposed landing site. So like, for instance, if the area that's kind of considered to be the highest priority is at the opposite end of the park, maybe that's not the right idea for the landing site. I don't know, it's not my area of expertise. But I think the thing that would help, you know, Jack and you know, the other easement holders really kind of digest what that means in terms of what the scope of work is like really boiling that down. I think we're generally open to the idea of it. But yeah, I don't think anybody, you know, it's I didn't pick up a lot of sentiment at the last meeting that anybody was forcefully opposed to forest management. But I do think like having a greater or more detailed proposal of like exactly what you see the priorities are. I'm sure we'll play off a loop or maybe it'll be a collaboration. I don't know how it all play out, but it's like just to kind of get an idea of if we are planning on doing some work next winter, what are the priorities of that, and making sure that we have enough time to kind of process.
Yeah, no. When I used to work for the state, we used to put stuff up for bid.
Mhm.
The high bid isn't always the best thing, because then they try to sneak out a few more logs every now and then. And I do all my sales on, when they bring to the sawmill, what they pay in there, which is what, it's equal to everybody, you know, every log goes in and they get so much, and then the town gets so much stumpage out of it. And that money could be used for many things. But you try to put in the contract as many things as you can to improve that, to make sure you're doing the right thing. Like he's got tractor trailers. I mean, my God, that's a nice road. That's a pretty nice road.
Yeah,
In a landing area, it's smooth. It's all required. When it's done, the job's done, it's smooth, seeded, mulched. Then we seed and mulch everything. And you don't have to do it if you're going to build a parking lot. And you could even have the guy gravel cut as part of the sale at the end, gravel parking lot or something. But, no, these are things you can have the operator do. I just looked at this. And I thought that we have a parking lot there. You could run a road right up through this, right into the Bourne piece, if we're gonna manage the Bourne piece. This is a good logging access too, not just to, and that again, turn back into a trail in a parking lot. And
Bourne has been logged pretty hard the last 10 years or so, I think.
yeah, I don't know. Arlo used to do that, and then now
We've been logging it for a long time.
yeah, I don't know if the last time it was done,
Yeah.
because I don't think that
yeah, it was high graded pretty recently.
really.
Yeah.
That's too bad. That's all I. Arlo, I know, did a lot of nice work in there.
Yeah.
Wonder who high graded that. It was what's her name?
Tallman?
Oh, I don't know. That's, I was going, so.
I'm not sure where they hauled the logs out. I mean, Dave Holton's got some more insights in what was cut here close to town and hauled out across Tammy Westover's property, and essentially to a landing up behind the town garage. And the story I heard is that Tammy decided actually she didn't want them hauling across her land, and they had to shut down in a hurry.
It's a pretty good road from the town garage right up
Yep.
through there.
Yeah, there is.
Nice road.
I know it.
Yep.
It needs some work right now, but it's
They all need work.
but also, you know, Luke's point was that there's a lot of timber that probably should have been taken in the last rounds, but it's in that area at the top of the hill, which is not accessible very well from this piece.
Yeah,
And then the flips, you know, the thing to consider is that you know, our number one priorities are the wildlife, the water quality, and the recreational values. And
I'll be done with the
so,
log job.
I should mention aesthetics also. So you
We
know,
leave, you know, certain trees along the roads, and we don't go anywhere near the brooks.
mhm,
And used to leave 2 wildlife trees per acre. Like old tree with a hole in it or something. Leave those for the wildlife. Because you remember, you don't have any vegetation from 6 feet down. The deer, there's nothing there for the deer to eat. That's why we try to create these openings and everything, let the sun in, let that brush grow. You've probably
Yeah.
seen the clear cuts along Route 15 now and then. You say, oh my God, look at that, but look at it now. There's more rabbits and different animals in that lower section.
Yeah, it's
Not fun to
questionable-
walk through, but
it's questionable whether we want the white-tailed deer, but that's another story. So I mean, I think, you know, in conclusion,
there's some thoughts and,
yeah.
I don't know what the town regs on that are. I don't think.
Forest management, aligned with the forest management plan, which Emily created for us and
Right.
you can have a look at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And Emily's hard to get. She is so busy. And now she's moved to Barry. No longer in the ag building.
over her office, yeah.
You can't ever get to her. They're just so busy. She's got Walden and Hardwick and,
Yeah.
you know, all that area too, I guess.
Were you gonna say something?
Well, yeah, Dave, I think Dave's mentioned that, like, sort of, even aged, what is spruce pine area as, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
That's what
the
you're talking
pine,
about.
well, there's a pine plantation
The
over
pine
here
plantation,
that,
right. Right.
needs some attention.
Definitely, it's, right.
Yeah, a lot of them are planted and that's
I
when
haven't
they
managed
never do anything.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of those big white pines, hikes I've been up there. There's time for those things to go, because when they come down, when they get, we figure 24 inches, it's time to go. Because what happens, those pine is not a very sturdy wood. Up top, those branches start breaking from the wind and everything and snow, and that lets red rot down through those branches into the main stem. So you get them any bigger than that and cut them down, all of a sudden you get them a rotten center in it. That's why we recommend. Once in a while, you want to leave one for aesthetics or something, but if they come down over a trail or something, who's gonna cut them up? That's why it's good to get all these a lot of the hazard trees along where are gonna have the trails, get them out of there. The best way is a lot of.
okay. One of the things that, I don't know if you're tracking the progress of the Emerald Ash Borer.
I really haven't seen it too much up here. I think my thought, it changes every weekend.
But,
My thought is the higher elevation.
Luke and Linda found some on my aunt and uncle's property, just up the road from you.
So I haven't really seen it too much. I think the upper elevation is not like the lower, the Champlain Valley where it's warmer and everything. But, another one, I'm recommending leaving good, full, nice crown ash. Because that's the nicer, that's the healthiest tree. And we are gonna find some that are resistant. There's a lot of people say, everything over 12 inches cut. No. Leave some, wait till something's happening, then get them.
Yeah.
But we are gonna find some resistant. I know down in Pennsylvania. They're gone. How are they gonna make baseball bats?
Yeah. Well, we've got a number of big ash trees up on the top of the hill up here, which, would be interesting. And also, actually kind of coming to the next item on our agenda, which is the Westover property in between us, where we're sitting right now in the town forest. And there's a lot of ash in there as well. So.
Again, just monitor, that's the best thing to do.
Mhm.
And it attacks the bigger trees.
Huh.
Mature trees.
Okay, well, conclusions from this part of the discussion. I mean, as Roger said, we're favorably inclined to forest management activities, and I have to say, I don't know if I would want to see a plan. The idea of having somebody, would you call it a shear, or is that the same thing as a feller buncher? To be going in with equipment that size, and I think that kind of operator has to do a lot of
Oh, yeah,
cutting.
they're pretty
They
good.
have to do a lot of cutting in order to make it worth their time.
So some of these guys are pretty good at it. I was impressed when I first saw them. I said, oh my God, they're gonna go in. Destroy the place. Wow.
Hmm.
There's something. They take all the stuff out. There'll be chips out of this, there'll be firewood, there'll be pulpwood, there'll be saw logs and
It's good, they say leaving tops on the ground is good these days too, to help.
some places we can leave. Right, people want them and some people don't. You want a nice park area or something up there, pull all the tops up, or if you want to leave it for the wildlife, we'll leave it.
Yeah. What we want is a healthy forest.
That's right, that's what I want too.
So,
You know, the creamy stand is Route 15.
yeah,
Everybody, that's different. I did a job up there, it's Water and Light Department, the Bugby Springs. That was the springs that fed all down in the town years ago. I did a job there in '76 when I was municipal forest, cut out 300,000 board feet. They went in there in the '90s and did something, I don't know what they took out, but I went up in there and I talked to the Water and Light Department. I said, I'm gonna go up and take another look. I walked in there and I didn't know where I was. I know I was in the boundaries, but it wasn't as I imagined. There's different trees that have grown up. The log got a white pine that big. And in 1976 was that big. I went back 50 years, it was that big.
Wow.
And it just, because it was done right, you know. It was Mark sale and I had a good operator and everything. And to go, so I can prove it. Not many people around for the second cut, or the third cut, but I'm still here. And what I did back there was good and pretty proud of what I've done, still doing it, so.
okay. The next item on the agenda, and no objections to moving on. The next item is, discussion of Westover Property Select Board and Planning Commission plans. So what this is, Linda Martin, Chair of the Select Board, is asked me and also the Chair of the Town Planning Commission to come and talk to the Select Board next Wednesday at their meeting, about plans for the Westover property. And so, we've talked a little bit about it here, but more so, the more time I spend on the town forest and looking at that property, the more striking it is how much recreational opportunity there is with that property, and the importance in my mind of managing it carefully for the sake of all the uses. There's the recreational recreational possibilities are amazing just simply because of the proximity to the rail trail, the ease of access, the possibility of having loop trails that start right out here and come down on the other side of the rail trail.
That's your best access.
It's fantastic. It's
Because
it's good hiking to get onto the Bourne property also.
Yeah.
You're right. It's the only way
Yeah.
to get onto the Bourne property is realistically,
that's
it's
a
the
FEMA
only good one.
That's a FEMA
Yes,
buy?
yeah. So, on the other hand, it's beautiful woods. I walked out there in the springtime and the ramps that are growing out there. It's got one of the thickest patches of ramps that I've seen. And it would be a shame to have it, have it overutilized. So I think, I think we, as the town, it would be good if we can be pretty active about managing it, about creating trails in there and managing the access, and also having a view about forest maintenance. Again, when Luke was here last week, he was concerned about the ash borer and the fact that if the borer gets to the trees and you don't follow up on it soon, they actually become a safety hazard. So these are concerns that I would intend to raise to the select board, and I just want to bring them up here. As you know, for our discussion, and number one, and also to invite anybody else from the committee who'd like to come. But also to take input and feedback, if there's things that we as a group will feel, or individuals within the group feel that I should give voice to in the select board meeting.
What's going on with the FEMA? Anything?
Well, what do you mean? It's done.
Is it done?
Yeah, it's done. The town owns the property now.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah,
Now
Linda.
you're gonna let that guy sugar?
Yeah,
We're gonna keep him sugar, okay?
yeah.
That's good. Because there was a lot of work done on those roads up there through the Soil Conservation Service years ago. Roy Westover did a lot of work up there, so.
Huh.
There's some nice road, there's culverts and all the roads up there, you've probably seen them.
The culverts are all
And some
filled,
of
the
them-
culverts are all filled with gravel right now.
I know, they would never maintain, that's the trouble, they could be reset. And everything, but the town does own that now, okay, I didn't know that,
The town owns it now, yes.
good. Good piece.
Yeah, Linda's just wondering about the lien of the land use value. Lien that's on there. She wanted to talk to Emily in Hardwick when she was in Hardwick. Emily didn't end up, she was sick, she couldn't go.
It's a shame.
So, yeah, Linda's still sort of hanging on that, like wondering about how that works, pulling it out of land use. Use value appraisal, those terms. Yeah.
So we had many discussions here, and I think it's pretty clear what the conclusion was, that the lien stays with the land, and therefore it's the requirement to manage it as forest or to withdraw it and pay off the lien remains irrespective of the town ownership. So we have to keep a forest management plan on the property, and perform activities according to the plan.
So as long as you keep managing it, then.
Can't be
Yeah.
under use value if it's town land, so.
It's not under use value, but the lien remains. The obligation to perform the activities. It
Unless it's all
remains.
pulled out.
Well, and in which case you have to buy out the lien
Yeah.
as you would if it was private.
So okay, yeah, maybe you just convey that to her or something. She seemed like,
As the select board, I know Linda had talked about the possibilities for the Westover property several times. That was several months ago. Is the vision for that property still nebulous, or are they leaning towards a particular direction of what the select board is already envisioning for the property, or do you know?
I don't know that the select board has a particular vision, and I think that's why they're inviting the town planning commission and the forest commission to come and collaborate on developing or at least refining the vision.
Yeah, I was just trying to get a sense of how blank the canvas was at this stage of the discussion.
Yeah.
Cool. It's exciting.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the possibility of a park down there where the house is, the house has to be removed.
Right.
But the possibility of that is a recreation
Replace
space.
your parking lot too.
What?
Replace your parking lot in there too.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many more parking lots we need, to be honest. But
Yes, you need more.
yeah.
Part of me was thinking that, after the wastewater system is installed, that it might be an ideal point to put a public restroom to facilitate the people who use the trails. Maybe the rail trail.
Yeah.
Traffic as well.
Right through there.
The thing about a rest area is it invites people to stop, and once they've stopped, they might actually filter into the town and explore and maybe support businesses in the town.
Yeah.
So I'll throw that out there as maybe 5 years from now idea for that space.
so it's got some lawn at the house site, open land.
Yeah.
And on Railroad Street, where it touches Railroad Street and then corners of the rail trail. So, yeah, there's a couple open areas already open. I mean, seems like if somebody's not maintaining it, and yeah, I guess these are things that they're sort of looking to us to sort of give them recommendations for. When is the house gonna be removed? Has that been set yet?
She's got to, run the request for proposals and solicit bids for it.
Is it just gonna be torn down?
Yes.
Yeah,
Wow.
What a shame.
It's a nice house. You know?
yeah.
Better couldn't be
Well, someone
moved.
wants to move it.
Yeah. Used to do it in the old days.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a good, decent quality, supposed to be in construction in it. But,
Yep, and it's got river frontage,
mhm.
flood frontage.
Who knows what's in there?
Yeah,
Cost of what you're gonna be doing probably.
I mean, yeah, she got, well, she got all the appliances from the 2022 flood. Was it 22 and 23 or 23 and 24?
23 and 24.
Yeah, okay. So 23 and 24, 2023, she got all new appliances and then she got flooded out again in 24 and was just like, I'm done. I just don't want to do this.
She out of there now?
She's, yeah,
She moved to.
yeah. So, you know, I mean, that's a nice asset for the town of Wolcott as well.
Is there access right down to the river there?
Yep.
Yeah, that's nice.
The banks are high, right, but it is touching, the river.
Yeah.
All right, there's no.
It's not exactly like.
Sure, and it's, yeah, the level of the river modulates greatly.
It's not-
I was thinking like, a good little fishing spot or something like that.
Probably takes some work. I don't know, but there is this right where the rail trail sort of bends and almost touches the Memorial. Gets really close to Memorial. There's another little open shrubby spot. I don't know what that's like. If that could maybe be a fishing spot, but
Do you leave everything there, move everything out or what?
She should probably just take whatever she wants to take with her.
Yeah.
I have no idea where she's going to.
So, my intention is that, I will recommend that, the town focus on, the recreational opportunities and provide a direction in the recreational opportunities in the woods here. That, there's a lot of scope for some nice walking trails, bikeable trails that, almost more so on the Westover property, but access across the Westover property onto the Bourne parcel. Or frankly, the property line runs more or less right down a ridge. And a nice access trail that gets up to the knoll, we kind of zigzag back and forth across that property line. So that's my impulse to recommend that, we focus on developing the recreational aspects of it, and that realistically, it should be, it should be part of the town forest essentially, that doesn't need to be a separate committee or anything, that this committee can take responsibility for guidance and oversight on that parcel as well.
and eventually, looking at a map, it's all gonna just be Wolcott Town Forest, right? This is just gonna be. I would think no separate line and just like. Just curious, I mean, it'll just become more forest land. Seems like, right,
Jack, what would maybe some concerns, as from NRLT about incorporating that property as an addition to the town forest? Is that something that we could also, in a similar process to the Smith property?
Well, yeah, you could talk to VHCB about placing a conservation easement on it or adding it to the existing one.
Or is that even necessary to?
You know,
With the FEMA,
the town owns it, so you would suspect that it would take care of it. But I will tell you, there have been cases in Vermont where towns, get into a financial situation and sell off their property. They've sold their town forests before, so keep that in mind. A conservation easement wouldn't prevent the town from selling the property, but it would keep it from being developed. And
the terms of the FEMA buyout prevent it from being developed.
Okay, that's right. That's right.
So,
Yeah, so
FEMA won't buy the property if it is developable. The whole point is that they're buying something
That's right.
that,
So,
helping out a
Pull it
landowner.
out of the flood zone.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Now, looking into the future, I mean, the house was flooded, but there's, 44 acres, some of it, which is, 300 or 400 feet in elevation higher than,
yeah.
200 plus feet in elevation higher than the house. Could somebody do a subdivision or something? Even so, I think it would, it might make sense. Just
That was
almost
the
as a
deal, they had to buy the
formality.
whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what,
So when FEMA bought it, they don't allow any development,
No.
even up higher.
I don't know that anybody's tested that. That's the thing. It's one parcel.
Yeah,
And the terms of
it applies to the entire parcel.
applies to the entire parcel. And I think it would be an interesting test case if somebody were to try to do a subdivision and a conservation
Yeah, you have to
easement
subdivide it,
would
and
just
you
make
gotta
it harder.
it gets complicated.
Yeah. So I don't, I don't feel like the development of that hillside is something we need to be worried about.
Yeah, I can't.
That would be an interesting.
Hunting camp, that's about it.
Yeah,
Feel like you destroy everything awesome about it in the process.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, more protection is better than less, but I don't think we need to sweat over, getting more protection over and above what's already there.
Understood.
You want to vote on this thing now, or?
I don't think there's anything we need to vote on.
No, there's no motion. I think, it's brainstorming.
Just talking about it.
Yeah.
Want to talk to the select board.
Yeah,
Anything we can do to enrich the presentation, is, supports the cause.
All right,
cool.
we have time. Anything else? That it?
That's all the items on the agenda.
All right,
Maxfield, you got anything?
you're pretty quiet over there.
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. All right then. Adjourned by consensus.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.